In the village of Amaya's Rest, the sun does more than shine. It paints the earth in shades of honey and copper. Jelani, a man shaped by the soil and the hunt, was known for a hand that never shook and a heart that spoke in whispers. Beside him was Zola, his wife, whose laughter was the only melody their home ever needed. This season, however, their joy was edged with a quiet gravity. Zola carried a new life within her, a secret promise that grew stronger with every waxing moon. But a long shadow haunted those golden hills. For cycles beyond counting, a great lion had claimed the territory as his own. He was no ordinary predator driven by hunger. He was a creature of ancient malice. He decimated the village's herds and stole the freedom of the children, who no longer dared to run through the tall grass. Every night his roar arrived like a heavy curtain of fear, draping itself over every thatched roof in Amaya's Rest. Jelani watched Zola in the low light of their home as she prepared their evening meal. He saw the way she flinched at the mere rustle of the wind against the thatch. He knew then that for their child to take its first breath in a world of peace, the shadow had to be lifted. Without a word, he began to gather his gear, his leather pack and his finest spear, setting his mind on a path that led far from the safety of the hearth. At the first light of dawn, when the world was a soft palette of violet and gray, Jelani stepped out into the wild. He did not look back, for the weight of his purpose was heavy enough to keep his eyes forward. He moved like a ghost through the dew-drenched plains, his senses heightened, scanning the horizon for the slightest flick of a tail or the heavy press of a paw against the earth. The trail was cold at first, but Jelani possessed the patience of the stones. He followed the language of the wilderness, the broken stems of the acacia, and the panicked sudden flight of the birds. By midday, under the heat of a high sun, he found it, a deep indentation in the red clay. It was a footprint larger than a man's hand, a heavy mark of power leading straight toward the ravine of echoes. In the mouth of the ravine, the air grew unnaturally still, as if the earth were holding its breath. Then, the silence was shattered. The great lion emerged from the shadows of the rocks, a mountain of muscle and sun-scorched fur. He did not growl or roar. He simply watched Jelani with amber eyes that had seen 1,000 seasons. The hunter and the hunted stood frozen in the balance of the afternoon heat. The lion lunged, a sudden flash of gold against the gray stone. Jelani moved not with fear, but with the calculated grace of a man protecting his future. The struggle was a whirlwind of red dust and thunderous sound. Jelani felt the searing heat of the beast's breath and the staggering strength of its spirit, but he held his ground. He was driven by a single thought, the small, steady heartbeat waiting back at the village. When the dust finally settled, the ravine returned to its heavy silence. The shadow that had gripped the hills was extinguished. Jelani sat on a fallen stone, his breath coming in ragged, painful gasps. He looked down at his hands. They were shaking, not from weakness, but from the sheer enormity of the moment. The hills felt lighter, as if the very earth were finally breathing a sigh of relief. Jelani returned to Amaya's Rest as the sun dipped below the horizon, bleeding purple into the sky. He carried no trophy, no skin, and no claws, but the village knew by the steady rhythm of his stride that the terror was gone. Mosi, the village elder, met him at the wooden gate. No words were exchanged. The newfound peace in the air spoke louder than any shout of victory could. That night, the terrifying roar did not come. Instead, a different sound filled Jelani's home, the sharp, clear cry of a newborn child. Jelani sat by the low fire, cradling his son, while Zola rested beside them. The boy would never know the great lion, and he would never fear the grass. He would grow up in a world where the golden hills were a place of wonder, no longer haunted by shadows.